Hello, beautiful One World community, One Love, community care. So good to see you. It's Stephanie Ajna here, holding space for the Freebird podcast. And today we are so blessed to have Danni-elle with us. And she's going to be sharing a bit of her story. And what we're here for really is bringing mental health more into awareness of what we can do with ourselves, with empathy, with messages of those who are struggling so they can come through, and for those who are on the other side to know how much your story matters. And we may meet people on the street and have no idea what they've actually been through. Yeah, so let's take it forward. Would you
Beautiful. Thank
like
you.
to share a little bit about your story, love?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here with you all. So I had a pretty rough childhood growing up. From when I was really little, my mum and dad separated when I was around 3, and they parted ways, not in a very good way because they weren't in a great place themselves. And my experience from that is just pretty much constant, unsettled chaos from that moment onwards throughout my whole childhood. There was a lot of domestic violence once my stepfather came on the scene, and it was just a very unsettling way to grow up.
Yeah, I
And
can imagine. Mhm.
yeah, it was a lot. And I really didn't, I'd never really looked back into my childhood or anything like that, not even before having children on my own. So I fell pregnant when I was 17 with my daughter, and I had 2 children by the time I was 20. And that's probably when I found myself at my absolute lowest and at my despair, and started questioning, why am I here? And am I worthy of being here? And can I actually do this? At the time, I was a single mum and had just had my newborn baby boy. And I can pretty vividly remember it was like day 2 of being home from the hospital with him. And I was feeling really heartbroken and empty and lost. And I just remember being at the end of my bed on my knees, bawling my eyes out, just begging for the strength to be able to go on, because I just couldn't. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. I just thought, like, why is it me that I just can't? I'm just not good enough for this life. I couldn't give my children the family that I really, really wanted for them. And I just was spiraling out of control. And I was really, really lucky, that I had my step pop actually, who I could call on, who was quite spiritual and really grounded. And I had loads and loads of phone calls with him over the years of just going backwards and forwards in and out of a pretty rough relationship with the father of my kids. And I remember him saying certain things to me like that the peace and love and everything that I'm searching for outside is actually inside of me, and that
Mm.
I don't have to experience this pain anymore, and I have a choice, and I get to choose the direction of where my life is going. And when he was like, he would say that to me over the phone. At this time, I would have been in my, like 20. I hadn't turned 21 yet. And I just remember thinking, like, I have no idea what you mean. Like, I was just stuck in a world of pain and I didn't understand any of what he was saying, but he'd keep saying the same things to me over and over. And I started listening and looking into some self-development things online and reading some books about going inward and focusing on me, because at the time I was really young. I'd never been modeled like healthy mental health, self-worth, self-love. I'd never experienced any of that. Um, so to give like an idea of what I felt inside as a young girl was just like, I'm not worthy. I ruined my family. I'm not with the father of my children. And I just feel like there's no point in going forward. And I really felt like, I remember feeling like everything around me was destroying me, and everyone around me that was around me in a, like, for instance, toxic way was the reason why I felt the way I was feeling. And I had no self-awareness at that point that it had anything to do with me, or that there was anything I could do to change or get out. Um, and it was,
You were at like a rock bottom there, right? That's a rock bottom where everything
yeah.
inside and everything outside was bleak.
Mm,
Yeah. And you had
yeah.
this one person reminding you that, you have a choice about this, but your inner world was just, I'm unworthy, I have no choice, right? So what um like this is really beautiful, your vulnerability and sharing like this aspect of you and just that allowing us to dive into this part of you that you experience. So thank you so much for your vulnerability. And I think that many of the people listening might really resonate with knowing that moment of, oh my God, I can't go on, and all the reasons you make for it in the mind and the
Mm,
heart and the body when it doesn't know true self-love or self-worth. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
you're welcome.
Can you describe like what when you were at rock bottom, like how did you continue existing in life and what brought you forward?
So it was probably pinpointed to a specific moment where, like, I was cooking dinner for my kids, for my daughter, and I had my baby, and I was once again on the ground on my knees, and I remember I fell asleep there crying, and I woke up the next day, and I just thought, like, I literally got on my knees and prayed, and I'd never had before in my whole entire life, just reaching out, like, just I couldn't breathe, and I didn't know anything. And I didn't want anyone to know that that's how I was feeling, besides my pop, who I'd called. Um, and I've honestly, I feel like it was my children. Like, if I didn't have someone else to care for in that moment, I'm not sure how I could have gone on, but if I was to go deeper and just be really, like, truthful with myself, it was that little glimpse, like the tiniest slither of chance that maybe my life won't be like this forever,
Mm.
and maybe it can be different. And I felt like just the tiniest, tiniest bit, like I saw this flicker of light at the end of this really, really dark place, that maybe it doesn't have to be like this. So it's worth holding on just to see if you can create a better life,
Yeah.
and if
Mm.
maybe it doesn't have to continue being this horrible. Because all I could remember up until that point was life was just horrible. Like, there was little moments of happiness and joy, but it just felt like life was always so hard. And at
Mm.
that point, I was exhausted. But it was that glimpse of light that had been shared in my life from my pop, and little things on social media, simple as like quotes that I'd seen that had just opened my eyes to, like, maybe this doesn't have to be this way.
Mm.
Maybe my life isn't being controlled by everyone else. Maybe I could do something about it. Just tiny things like that, that day when I woke up on the floor is when I, like, something woke up within me and decided that, like, I've got to do something different. I've got to try. I can't give up.
Mm. Wow. Wow, beautiful. Thank you for that share. And yeah, like being on the floor, broken down, like that's the thing. Like we get to these points where there's nothing left, and then you come out of it with this new perspective. And
Mm,
I like how you mentioned too that even little quotes on social media sometimes gave you that spark of this reminder, and I believe in there's a lot of synchronicity around that, and what reaches you, whether when you're very disconnected from people and isolated, it can be on the phone, on social media, or even this video that someone watches and says, "Oh yeah, I've been
yes.
there," right?
Yeah.
Um, and with you, like, did you have substances involved in that, or were you mostly staying sober?
at that point, that was my rock bottom. I was not drinking or anything like that because I was breastfeeding. Um, but even though I'd had that awakening moment then when I had my son, I ended up back with the father of my children, and we had another child together, our beautiful third baby boy. And that's when substance came in. So that was alcohol, and quite heavy. And
Mm,
that would just be every weekend. And from the outside in, I was perceived as very functional. Our household was amazing. We had our dream house, our dream cars, and completely almost dead inside again. Um, and that, yeah, alcohol was, we'd drink on the weekends and it would be like, oh, maybe everything is okay, until I'd wake up the next morning with my hangover, trapped, feeling like I couldn't breathe,
mm,
and with just this like emptiness within me, like I've completely failed once again.
mm. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you for that, for sharing that. Yeah. This thing around how it looks from the outside versus what's actually happening inside. This can be so in so many families. And when people find out what's actually happening inside, they can be really shocked. And so there is this aspect of keeping it all together for everyone else, you know? And if anyone here is feeling that, you know, or resonating with that, okay, yeah, everything looks good and we're drinking on the weekends and, you know, noticing when you notice you're in a cycle, it
Mm.
still takes time to come out of that cycle because you've been doing it for so long and even convinced yourself that this is who you are, or, you know, like, and this is the man that you kept coming back to. But was there violence, or you said it wasn't so good with him?
There wasn't violence. It was just very unhealthy. Probably we both didn't really have sustainable upbringings to be in a relationship, and we were together from a really young age. So there was a lot of probably like manipulation and other types of abuses that were coming in because we were both pretty lost and empty inside.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
beautiful. Yeah. And it can just be that, like, there's so many different levels to a relationship that is toxic.
Mm.
And often we can say, oh, there's no abuse, so I can stay with this, you know, but abuse comes in all sorts of ways, emotional abuse. And
Yeah.
yeah, just to be really aware of where you're at in in the cycle with your life, right?
And
And
I held on to that.
yeah.
Like one of my beliefs that I ended up shifting out of was because I saw a lot of physical violence in my childhood. So I remember always saying to myself in my hardest times, like, it's not that bad. Like, you're not hurt yet.
Mm,
So, hold on. And also just thinking like the shame around having an unhealthy household for my children when that's all I wanted my children not to have after
mm,
having that myself was what kept me trapped from sharing. And because I trapped myself from sharing, that's why I stayed so long. And it wasn't until, like I said, I had another baby and another home and everything, and hit rock bottom again. And it would have been at the end of that year when my son was 1, where I went to a women's retreat and
mm,
opened up for the first time. That was the day that I knew, I didn't know when or how everything was going to change big time once and for all. But I knew it was because I felt safe and I opened my heart to be seen, um, to what was really happening in my life and how I really felt.
mm. Wow. Beautiful. And this women's retreat, like, it can be really interesting what happens when you just come out of your normal cycle, right? You were in your house probably for a while, and to go on a women's retreat for a day or a weekend, it's actually like being out of you know, out of the water as a fish and being able to know, okay, wow, I was in that. And it's not right to just come back to it, even just being around other empowered women. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious about what happened in that women's retreat. Can you remember a specific moment or something that
Mm.
got you into a knowing that you couldn't? keep living your life the same way.
Yeah, I do. I remember sitting in circle. That was my first women's circle. It was an opening circle, and the lady who was running it was standing like at the like top of this circle. And I remember we all did like she'd come around to each of us. And I remember the moment I locked eyes with her, and all I saw was like this big, beautiful queen woman in her power. And I could sense that like she loved her. And then when I locked eyes with her, I felt that within me for the first time in my entire life.
Mm.
I just had this glimpse of like maybe I love me.
Mm.
That
Yeah.
was the first time I'd felt that. And I
Mm.
didn't even know then still what it meant. So it was probably that moment and a moment in a breathwork session at that same retreat that weekend
Yeah.
that clicked. And I was like, I just felt like this layer of myself dissolve and this willingness to want to understand me and bulldoze anything that got in my way of getting to know me and falling in love with me.
Mm. Mm. Absolutely. Wow. Thank you for that. Yeah. And breath work as well. Like breath work, if I'm myself, I'm a breath worker, and just find that breath work can be something so powerful in teaching you parts of what you don't even know you don't have within you, like just that unraveling that you're speaking about. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that if you're ready to break through a transformation, breath work can be a great way to start
Yeah.
to even just clear your blockages, remind you of pieces from the past. And yeah, it's beautiful to hear that breath work was a part of your journey. Did you continue with breath work?
Yes, yeah, I do it all the time. It's been a huge part of my healing journey. And I actually just remembered a moment at the retreat before our breath work. And the lady that was doing it for us was explaining how it would all work because no one had ever done it before. And she was just explaining what a journey can look like. And I remember her saying this one thing that like just opened up everything in me, in my like every cell in my being. And she was explaining how we can be on our life journey and be going this way, and we're set in that way, and that's how our life's meant to be. And I
Mm.
can't remember exactly what she said, but she just said that, like, know that it's okay for our pathway to go a certain way. No matter how far down that path we've gotten, we can always change directions, and there's nothing wrong with that, and we're worthy of that. And I remember when she said that, was like I could breathe because I felt so stuck and trapped.
Mm.
And I remember thinking, like, what if that's me? What if, like, I actually, no matter how far down I am, no matter like how attached to the life I was trying to create I was, what if I just jump off here and start fresh?
Mhm. Wow, beautiful. And so, yeah, in order to do that, you must have had to start changing more in your life and taking off masks and having some hard conversations. So, how was that part for you? Was it like very quick after you got back from the retreat, or did it still take some time to process?
Yeah, it took some time. I think it was about 8 months it took before myself and the father of my children separated. In that time, there was a lot of self work and self reflection. And I pretty much just like in my life pretended like there was a mirror. And I decided that nothing, like anything that came up within me,
Mm.
I was not going to put blame on anyone or anything outside of me. I was facing off with myself. And that was tough because I'd not looked into my childhood. And in my breath work that I was doing, lots of things were coming up.
Mm.
Um, like moments from when I was really small, there was a moment of um, like not extensive sexual abuse, but a moment where I was exposed as a child to an older man and just all of these big things that I was starting to connect the dots to, like the rest of the way my life had played out, and that I wasn't just like this broken, useless human. I'd been through all these things, and never healed them or brought them to the surface or shown myself any love or compassion. It was just constant, keep everyone alive, keep this family going for the kids' sake, and pleasing everything and everyone externally. Um, so yeah, that was a tough period, but so fulfilling on the other side of it.
Mm, yeah, yeah, absolutely. It
Mm.
sounds like it. And, and it's even trying out a new role and taking those masks off with people around you, seeing you in a new way. How was it for you with that, with your community and, which like peeling off parts of you to show that it wasn't actually the way it looked from the outside?
Yeah, that was really tough. Especially my daughter had already started school, and I just felt so ashamed of like my family's fallen apart, and I needed support, and I knew I'd fought gaining support for years, like because of the shame around needing it. Um, and I knew this time when I knew like 12 months prior when I was at that women's retreat, like if my life's going to change, I can't do this alone, and I'm willing to reach out for support. So I knew in that moment that that meant I've got to let people in, that my family and other support services. And that felt really big. A lot of really uncomfortable conversations, and continuing my journey through the really hard times of separation and being a single parent, trying to figure all of that out. Um, to continue every single day, the journey that I still continue today on doing the work so that I didn't get caught up and stuck in all of the things that were coming up.
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful. So this is a big piece around breaking cycles and, even intergenerational trauma. Once you started going into your own inner child stuff, you couldn't continue allowing your kids to be in a situation anywhere like that, right?
Yeah.
It's this huge piece where, we can be the person to break that, generational trauma.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful for your kids to also see that, to see that you've done the work to make sure that they grow up in a healthy living environment, right?
Yeah. And that was
Pain
really,
of
really
leaving
tough.
was really real, but now, how many years later is it? And if you could just tell us a bit about the emotional or mental states you went through in that journey too, in the aftermath of leaving.
Yeah. I was trapped in fear, and I didn't know this probably until about a year and a half ago now, but it was actually fear that I'd held on to from my own, like mum and father separating. And there was like court, there was lots of feeling unsafe and being told like we're unsafe. So, and being like torn from one parent to the other, lots and lots of that sort of thing. Um, so I held that fear underlying separating from the father of my children. And then I had that fear afterwards. And my body was riddled with that for months. So I went through phases of that. Um, I knew when I left that if this was going to be the thing that change like breaks the cycle in our families, that I couldn't touch alcohol. Because
Mm,
if I did, I doubt the choice that I made, and I need to be clear-minded for this. And that was really, really hard.
mm,
Um, Even with like people around me that loved me, wanting to like, can't we just drink? Like you're finally free, let's celebrate. And I knew I had to stay away. And if I didn't, I probably wouldn't have continued my journey.
mm,
Um, So there was a lot of emotions that came up, like a whole lifetime of sadness and grief from a life that I'd created in my mind that wasn't really real.
mm,
Um, and a lot of, I feel like processing even like my mum and dad's separation and everything they went through, like I felt like I was almost processing that weight and then ours. Um, and then probably about a year and a half ago, in amongst all of this journeying with myself, really going deep and realizing that I am safe and
Yeah.
that this is my own experience and that I don't have to hold on to what I went through, and my children don't have to see life through that lens of what I've experienced. I get to choose to hold myself in this safe space, in this unconditional love, and make my choices from that space and create our life from that space, not living in fear. Because up until about a year and a half ago, things were really great and I was on my healing journey and lots had changed. Loads and loads had changed for us. We were achieving so many goals and it was great, but I was living in fear.
Hmm.
And when I opened my heart up to free myself from that space, that's probably when everything even went a level deeper again.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Yeah. And let's speak about that fear because I think a lot of us can resonate with living in that fear. How were you able to meet it? How did you get through it?
Um, it's hard to pinpoint. I remember feeling like I remember lots and lots of long periods of feeling it. And I remember because I'm facing off with myself and I was very deep in opening up to working with me and on me. And I could see how my fear that I was living in was soon going to start affecting my children.
Mhm.
And I remember like almost drawing out in front of me. Actually, I did. I sat down and was journaling, and I had an experience happen, like where like something had happened at the school and fear had come up really, really bad. And I had a terrible anxiety attack. And then I went home afterwards and everything was okay. And actually everything was okay. It was just an like a trigger experience where that had happened. And that's when I was like just questioned for a minute all of this fear that I've been holding on to and feeling. One, is it mine? And two, is it real?
Mm, mm.
Like, is this,
Yeah.
does this need to be here? Is there anything that I actually need to be afraid of?
Mm.
And I remember like writing out, just journaling lots and lots of stuff. I can't really remember what I was journaling, but I remember just have this massive big cry and I sat up and I just felt like this white light over me and just a openness of trusting whatever's coming my way because I couldn't stand another second of living in fear
Yeah. Yeah.
and trusting that unconditional love I feel in my heart and that I'd felt from the people that I'd met around me and that like our universal love, trusting that I won't be brought to harm and if I am, even then I'll be okay.
Mm.
That, yeah, shifted massively in me.
Beautiful. And even that questioning of what's real, is my fear real? Like if I, like they say, worrying is just fantasizing in the wrong direction. And, why would we do that when we can get excited about the full possibilities, right? But yeah, it's hard to get there from one place to the next. So I'm just curious, what advice would you give to someone who's wanting to break through?
From fear,
Yeah. And change their life the way you did, the way you left, the way you started over,
yeah,
like
I would
get through that and jump off. What advice would you give them?
I would definitely say if you can, if it's possible, anywhere in your community, connect in with women or men, anyone around you that you feel connected to, and just step into a space, whether that's a circle or a group or an online space where you feel safe. Even if you're not sharing, connect yourself with other human beings because we are so, so powerful.
Mm.
And it can be the simplest thing just by like one little connection, even if you don't speak, just to have that connection. And I honestly believe like when we feel that in our hearts, something lights back up that we're actually not alone in this. That would probably be my first thing. Um, I
Beautiful.
would say definitely. really my own journey began by just sitting with myself, whether that be meditation, breath work, or just the simplest things like I decided I was going to wake up every morning and take care of me before I went into mum mode, which meant waking up an hour earlier and just doing really tiny, small things because at that my lowest point, and everyone was talking about self-love and self-care, and I had no idea still what anyone meant of
Mm,
like, do these things that make you feel good. And at that point, I had no idea what made me feel good because I had spent my entire life pleasing everyone else. So I would just almost force myself to, I'd walk down on the beach and then I'd realize like, wait, I really love being here. I love being in nature and started remembering like the things that I love and started taking care of me. That's really where the little small steps started for me.
mm, mm. Yeah. Well, that's beautiful that's, the small steps, it's in that. And it's remembering that even those little shifts in your routine make big differences. Yeah. And
And
how about your children in that? How did they go with the separation and you seeing you step up? Were they really, of course it affects them, but I'm just curious, how is their
yeah,
connection now versus how it was then?
yeah, that feels like it's a big question because when I was in what I'd call like just my asleep self, I didn't realize that there was really anything wrong with my parenting or my connection or relationship with them until I got out and started working on me. The way I'd probably describe it is they would have had a mum that was just completely on autopilot prior to me starting working on me, um, really extensively. Like I would meet all of their needs, but be like an empty shell of a soul around them.
Mm, mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks
And
for
it
sharing.
was just rushing myself from one moment to the next, to the next, to the next, like chasing bedtime, chasing the next thing, the next drop off. And really, like, if I look back and I'm like, I just want to remember like that 6 months there, and I can't because I was in so much pain. I had to shut myself off
Mm,
so that I could meet their needs. Otherwise, I would have broken. And now we are like so connected because
mm,
I'm here.
mm,
And I can sense that they feel that they used to be really heightened in like their expressions and emotions and things. And I used to wonder like, why so over the top? Like why can't we just communicate and why don't I know what they need from me in those moments? I didn't know back then. I wasn't even meeting my own needs, but I just feel like I can feel their settled, calm nervous system from me being able to first do that for me and now being able to hold that space for them. They just are like three content whole beings.
mm,
And that's the most beautiful thing I've seen shift, other than my journey with myself, is that within them and
mm,
everyone around them noticing it as well.
mm. Yeah. That's beautiful. Um, and I feel like that's a big thing for people who are in the cycle and hard to get out, at that point where, it's like the children, if there's children involved, it's this wanting to keep the status quo and the autopilot because that's what they're used to. When, the whole new way is another way for them to awaken, to be used to
Yeah.
something much better and to receive a fullness of who you are. That's beautiful. I think
And
that
definitely that, sorry,
yeah, go on. Thank you.
that one of the biggest things I learned was that if I am okay and if I'm taking care of me, no matter where we are, because we
Mm,
went through, that was a housing crisis when we separated. So that was like chopping and changing of not knowing where we're going to be and like having to move out of somewhere within 24 hours and still not having the next house lined up yet. And everything was packed in boxes and there was so much uncertainty.
mm,
Um, and what I'd perceive as this is going to rattle their cage. But because I was taking care of me, and showing up for me, they just had their mum and like they were okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
They weren't held. And I know from looking back when times weren't unsettling and I wasn't in my body or aware of what was happening or working on myself, showing up for myself, the smallest things would rattle them. So I think I just really saw like this, if we take care of ourselves as mums and dads and parents,
Hmm.
taking care of you, putting yourself first through the toughest times and the things that we almost fear the most because we don't want to uproot anything for our children.
Yeah.
If they have you, they will be okay,
Oh,
from my experience.
yes, absolutely. And the better you.
Yes, yeah, like the full you, the real you that they want to have as their parent.
The real you that you know you can be, because even when you're in autopilot, there's a part of you that knows there's another way. There's part of you that knows you're chasing something. So
Yeah.
I would be interested to know, what would you share with your past self? What would you say if you were like seeing that part of you, that autopilot mom, and just the part of you going around in the same cycle? What would you share with her?
I would say to her, even if it means that we lose absolutely everything, even if you're parted from your babies for a while, what's on the other side of this journey is everything you could ever imagine. So
Mm.
just take that first step
Ah, that's beautiful. Hmm.
and
Do you
just trust.
Yeah. And it's almost as if like this future self of you was already speaking to that part of you. Um,
Yeah.
Timelines can really shift anyways, but like this is a piece to know, like, when you know that you're hearing that you can be better, know that like your infinite future self is still connecting to you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I
And
think that sometimes you need to see that if you can't see it yet in yourself,
yeah.
get yourself in an environment where someone else can see that and reflect that to you because
Mhm.
sometimes we just can't see it. And I
And
couldn't see
surround
it.
ourselves with environments that we can stay in the status quo.
Yeah.
And like you said, letting go of your friends who were wanting to celebrate with a drink at that time,
Yeah.
anyone, there's many, alcohol is one of the most common ways to be addicted to something, or alcoholism. So it's like that saying, no, I'm not coming out for a drink. Would you say, come on over? And would they come over for a tea, or was that not something that would happen? Was it a lot of
Um,
words of other friends as well?
we would still spend time together. It was just, I just wouldn't drink. I explained to them, like, I know I will wake up tomorrow with anxiety that's not real, that will tell me that I've done the wrong thing when I deep down know I have made the right choices. So I just can't do it to continue this path. So we still spent time together. We'd just go out in nature or do things like that until I was just felt stable and in my journey.
And that's so nourishing too, actually. That's so nourishing to see
Yeah.
that people do care about you. They will go for that nature walk with you. And those things you talk about over the bar, oh, we should do this. And then you wake up
Mm.
too anxious or too hungover or whatever it is,
Yeah.
drink, it's like, okay, you actually start to do those things. So that must have been a really good way to charge yourself into that new part of you.
Yeah, and really actually get to know everyone that was in my life. I think sunrises became my whole world. I would literally, if someone wanted to spend time with me, just tell them, meet me down at the beach at this time, um, and we'll watch the sunrise together. And that was probably one of my most grounding things is if you're in a really dark place and you actually have no one or anything else and you can't see the light, take yourself somewhere in nature where you can watch that sun come up because it just keeps coming up no matter what's going on in our world, amongst all the craziness and everything that's going on, it keeps rising. And I think just that connecting that we're actually a part of that, we're connected with that, with our beautiful Mother Earth, and that
Mhm.
we can rise too.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, rising up. So So good, so beautiful. Thank you. I'm just curious, like when we drop into the part with your parents and going back into your healing work with the inner child, I find that this work can be so helpful and yet so triggering, so hard to actually go into that. So I'm just curious, like if that shifted your relationship with your parental units as well, or with your family, or
Yeah.
if like what happened when you started to do that work.
Lots of different stages. Because at first it just like all got uprooted and it was just here, and I was like, oh, oh, no one got me any help when I was a little girl. Like, what was happening? Um, and I was really lucky that I had surrounded myself. Like I'd been to a women's retreat, so I'd opened my eyes and saw like there's breath work and there's meditation, there's people that know
Mm.
and have been through really bad things too, and they're okay now. Um, so definitely I will answer your question, but to anyone out there that feels like no one could have possibly been through this and I'm too afraid to share or be held or seen in a community space, you're not alone. You're not alone. We are all in this together. Whether we remember it all the time or not, we are. Um, so that I remember just a lot of sadness. I don't remember too much from like towards my dad, because he wasn't really around too much. But I remember sadness towards my mum. Lots came up, like, and we were living together at the time. So that was really tough to um,
Yeah.
juggle with that, like all of the layers that would come up of like, why didn't you protect me? Or like, why weren't things better? Um, but because I was doing the work on myself and meditating regularly, bringing myself back to my body, and really grounding myself with just unconditional love and that understanding that mum and dad did the best they could with what they had, and they're on their own journey too. I'm really lucky that at one point in my childhood, I spent a lot of time with my nan and pop, who I spoke about earlier, and they had always talked about this unconditional love and that everyone has a little bit of good in them. And I just remember that when I was going through that really hard period of healing and everything from my childhood was coming up, and I did have like moments of anger and like if they could have just changed one thing, like maybe I wouldn't have gone down that path.
Mm.
And then understanding and realizing that like if I if, if all of that didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I am today. I'll be who I am today. And it was just I had to take myself on a process of forgiveness and acceptance that I couldn't change it and that I love them, so I want them in my life regardless. And to have them in my life in a healthy way, that means accepting and loving what is, because it just is. And not, I had at one point this big story in my head about what it meant about me, and that had to shift and be dissolved for me to just be, it just is. I don't have to label this as bad or have this like take me away from my mum and dad relationship wise. It just is. And now we're in a new chapter. Um, so yeah, it was not easy. And there was times where I felt like I wanted distance and I would ask for that. And then there was times where I'd feel like I'd want to be close. And just the whole way through, I just kept saying to myself, like, up until now in life, I've spent my life pleasing and keeping everyone else comfortable. I just have to do what's best for me just for now because I know where I'm headed. So I just took care of me best I could in those moments.
Yeah, that's a huge piece. And forgiveness is massive as well. That's beautiful to see that you were able to really show a success story in that journey, because not always is it easy to be able to forgive your
Mm,
parents, be in a good way with them, and know
yeah,
that we shifted something. Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for showing that. Were they able to also forgive and share about their journey, or?
Yeah, so I do remember a moment because my mum had been through obviously a lot of trauma and domestic violence through when I was little. So when I did come back from retreat in breathwork, I'd remembered some really big moments and I shared them with my sister, and my mum didn't know that I was actually there when that was happening.
Mm.
So she'd apologized and we'd like had a big chat about everything, and I'd already known a lot about what had happened in my mum and dad's childhood. Everything was pretty open to us as kids. Um,
Mm. Yeah.
but yeah, I just had this like moment with mum, and the moment like that with my dad only happened 3 months ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was, I don't know why it just felt more tough because maybe because he wasn't around, and I didn't feel like there was actually anything there to heal. I was just like, oh yeah, like I didn't feel any like anger or sadness or anything around that. Um, and then up until just recently, I'd realized that like there was stuff there. I was just like hiding in the corner.
Mm.
Um, and that even though we're not in close connection now, I was able to be at peace with where he is in his journey. He may not be who I would love for him to be, but for me to be at peace inside, I had to be at peace with that as well and acceptance with that.
Mm. Yeah. You absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Um, yeah. I really feel like those of us who can see who you are now, I'd love to hear more about your lifestyle now and what's happening in your world. And if there's also any moments where things come back to you and it's, a bit of a cycle again, or what's going on in your life now, and how many years is it since you started to come to the other side of your dark night of the soul journey?
So 2020 is when I went to the women's retreat and had my separation at the start of 2021. And amongst that time, there was lots of times where um, like co-parenting wasn't going well. I was in a lot of fear. So there was times where their children didn't see their dad for extensive amount of time. Um, and now our life looks like we co-parent in a really healthy way. They have both of us in their life. We're both on a journey of our own. Um, I am able to work from home with them. I'm in a really healthy space. My youngest is starting school next year.
Mm.
Um, and we like I wake up every morning and I can't actually believe that life can be this peaceful,
Mm. Yeah.
and that everyone like we're all worthy of experiencing this, and that everything externally, the things that I chased half of my life, they're just like the topping on top. But the
Mm.
real gift that we receive while we're here in this human body is this peace and this love in ourselves. And I get to live that every day, going from someone like without any exaggeration, I cried myself to sleep every single night in
Mm.
those hard times. And I was just absolutely miserable.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do have moments like we're co-parenting, we've got 3 kids, 2 businesses. There's things that come up all the time. Um, and even I live with my mum as well. So there's always moments where things resurface. And there's a lot of I meditate every day, even if it's just 5 minutes in the morning. There's lots of little moments now that will come up where it almost feels like, especially with fear, like, like, do I need to be afraid in this moment? And I'll feel my whole body start to go there. And I just bring myself back to literally a few breaths. And I just bring myself to the moment and I just look around me and ask myself what needs to happen right now. And most of the time, it's nothing. Nothing actually needs to happen and everything is okay. So it's just that using what was used in a bigger scale now, small increments. And because it's been such a daily practice, each and every day, even on the days when things are fine. It's just starts to become a habit of like, I know my peace and love within myself, so I'll breathe back into that. And I feel like life now is like a dance. So it used to be like living in hell, really. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. Wow. From a living in hell to a dance. That's a great commitment to
Yeah.
yourself. Thank you for that. And also, yeah, I just want to mention that One Love Community Care is really all about trauma-informed practices with advocating, of course, government systems, but and allied health clinical systems, as well as spaces where people are really challenged by
Yeah.
mental health and addiction. So community is so important, and always to come back to these holistic therapies with teams. And I find that that's just one of these ways to come back to the body and intuition. And that's what Mary works with quite a bit, and I work with quite a bit, and many people on the team work with these ways to merge holistic practices with um, the government system. So
Yeah.
by mentioning breath work, I know that there might have been some other holistic therapies that have worked for you. I wonder if there's anything that you would recommend or anything you'd like to share about different therapies that you recommend to people out there who are ready to take that next baby step.
Yeah, so definitely breath work and meditations. And I did them in a group space at first, and then being able to just know that we've got our technology, so you can do it at home, even if you had no music, no guidance, it's literally our own breathing. Um, I did see a therapist for quite a while, and one of my like breath work and hypnosis sessions with her is where I had one of my probably most profound moments in healing when I was being held by someone else. So that was really, really helpful.
That was
And
hypnotherapy and breath work together.
yes, yeah.
Mhm. I'll just pop
Tapping,
in for a moment about
yeah,
breath work is that as a breath worker, I would definitely say to do it with someone,
yeah,
especially in the beginning, like the first year or so, to make sure that you have someone guiding you because you can actually enter altered states or
yeah.
have come through that you like you did, of remembering something from your childhood that
Deep note.
feeling anything that you would want to be in a space with someone who can hold that for you, but it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be in person. It's always really good, and I'd recommend to do it in person, but yeah, you can do it at home too with someone guiding you. And um yeah, just really wanting to mention the power of it is much more than we can ever imagine. And with breath work, to know that you can access that from what's always there, the breath
Mhm.
is always there around you. Yeah. And the same as you mentioned with your inner power and these messages from within, it's all there inside you. And this is such a magic part of the healing journey for you, I think, and many others.
Mhm. Because
Yeah.
there's just so much noise.
Yeah. Hypnotherapy, breathwork, meditation. Is there a specific type of meditation or place to access that you'd recommend?
Um, I know only for my sleep. I've consistently listened to Michael Sealy's sleep hypnosis, and that really helped. I didn't struggle much with sleep, but I would struggle quite terribly with like really bad, vivid nightmares. So I just play that all night.
Mm.
Um, and I still play that, and my daughter still plays that, and it really helped just have that grounding voice in the background. Tapping, which I learned in therapy, has been huge for me and my kids.
Mm.
Just having that process to be able to use in the moments where, like, I'd never, ever, ever known self-regulation or co-regulation until I was, what, 26, and learning that and being able to just use these small tools for me. Because there's so many moments where, especially in the first, like, say, 12 months of making a big change in your life or stepping away from drugs, alcohol, or abuse, where it feels like it's too much for your body to handle. But just that having that small little tools where you can remember that you can handle this and everything actually passes. It feels like you're like going to be stuck in that really intense time forever, but it does pass.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, it does. Absolutely. Huh. Beautiful. Thanks for that. Um, with tapping, is there anything, perhaps something simple that you can show people to do that would calm their nervous systems or anything?
I just learnt from my therapist, but it was literally just like we would be starting here and we would do some taps here. And it was a process that she ran me through where we would speak out loud the current situation. So the one that may be bringing us fear or anxiety, letting it actually be seen, even if it's not reality. So would you like me to give an example?
Oh no, that's good. That's good. Yeah. So you tap it.
So it was just like tapping a few points and you can research it or you can invest and get someone to guide you through it. But it was tapping on here, under here, 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 here on our chest, and then under here. And there was also one on the hand.
Like, yeah, beautiful.
Um, and it was just taking myself back, you back through that process of what was bringing up the fear and anxiety, and then using those tapping points and just normal breathing, and then bringing yourself to everything is okay and I am safe, and that you're all bringing all your truths back in, which has been amazing for me. But watching a child go from I can't breathe and I'm having the biggest meltdown, my whole life feels like it's crumbling, to seeing them remember themselves is like amazing.
Oh, yeah, beautiful to be able to use this for yourself and your children.
Mm.
And yeah, as a mom myself, I know that moment where you said to when you were on the ground in the dark night of the soul, and it was your children as well. If you didn't have someone to take care of, you don't know if you would have made it, you said. And I think that's a huge piece, is knowing how important it is, these children that are here, whether you have a child or not, though, someone that loves you, that's there, and how much they need you, whether you're caring for them fully or not. And this deep remembrance of just being a mother, which is so hard. And every mother I know has their hard times when you're on the floor with too much responsibility, to really remember how much they need you and how
Yeah.
much and you want the same for them. I think
Mm.
that's a beautiful moment to just acknowledge. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
needed we are.
Inside of you, this desire to keep giving, even though you were having a really hard time yourself. And I think that's a part of the human heart
Yeah.
that, yeah, that's beautiful.
That's like our our core self. Like we all have that deep within our hearts. I truly believe that we do. And it's just that remembering that we're so important, because you just completely lose sight of that when you're at breaking point and you're in that really dark place. It just feels like you could disappear and no one will care and it won't make a difference, but you do make a difference and you are important. All of us are, no matter where you are in life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Amazing. Well, it's been great having you. I think we're coming close to the end of this Freebird podcast. So I just would love to know if there's any more pieces that maybe we've missed, or pieces that you want to share that are alive for you about your journey, or what you would want to share with the listeners.
Yeah, there is one, and I'll try and keep it not too long. So
Sure.
in that breathwork and hypnosis I did, I remember I got taken back to a moment that was really traumatic for me as a child. And I saw myself standing there as a little girl, and I my therapist brought me back to like a calm place at the beach and brought me back to my older self. And in that moment, I remember I like physically actually screaming out for, at the time, my ex-partner. And I had this realization that my entire life I had been chasing, I didn't feel that unconditional love from a parent or that safety. I, from a really, really young age, like 13, had met someone and clung on to them and would do anything, abandon myself for years, put myself through years of pain and suffering to try and have this unconditional love, this thing that I was chasing outside of myself. And still after the separation, like even sometimes grabbing onto that from my children, like searching outside of myself. And it was in that moment when she said to me, "It's you, Danni, it's you that you're looking for." And I remember in that moment really feeling it, like everything that we search for outside of ourselves is in here. And there's nothing that you have to do to yourself or put yourself through to get that from anything externally. It's all in here. It's always been there and it'll always be there, and no one can ever take it away.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah. And thank you. Thank you for your vulnerability. And the truth of it is like that's something you can say or something you can feel and
Yeah.
know. And that's the journey of like, okay, I've heard that before, but feeling it and knowing it and living your life with that, that's incredible. It's incredible to see how far you've come. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to host this podcast today. And really want to thank you, Danni-elle, for being here and sharing your story. It's not easy to get up there and share with the world. So just really honoring your bravery and your vulnerability and just your story. It just mesmerized me. So thank you so much. Mm.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And to all of you out there, sending so much love.
Mm.
So remember that you're not alone. And if even this podcast reaches one human being that's in their darkest moment of life and this awakens something, can you just hold on, breathe, surround yourself with people who love you or a community that can lift you up when you can't lift yourself up, and it will pass.
It will, absolutely. And yeah, just to remember, thank you so much, all the listeners out there. Remember, you have many people here to support with Love, One Love Community Care. And out there in your life, there's many people there that can support you. And if you have any questions for Danni-elle, then we just send them through. We'll be able to connect you to her and give you her socials if you'd like to connect with her there. And let you know that you can also contact One Love Community Care at any point in time for anything that's coming up for you. If you want to share your story, or if you're someone who's gotten something from this and wants to dive deeper into anything that we offer, which is just about everything you can imagine for those going through hard times. So thank you so
Beautiful.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.